Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wandering DMs. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dan, and today on Wandering DMs, we're going to be talking about GM screens. You know, often they're the first must-have accessory for any new game system. What's good or bad design? What belongs on the GM side versus the player side? We're going to hash it out today and a lot more, all today on Wandering DMs.
Hi, everyone. Before we get started on GM screens, I just want to mention, as always, that at the end of the show, we will be hosting our after-party chat. That is a live video chat that Dan and I host with all of our patrons, and you can join in by becoming a patron. Just visit our Patreon at patreon.com/wanderingdms. Join at any tier, and you'll get an invite to our private Discord server. Get your account over there all set up before the end of the show, and about 10 minutes after the show, we will be there to host our live video after chat.
Yeah, our patrons are the best, like our patron Backrius for checking in that we're currently live on Twitch and YouTube and Restream. Thank you as always, that we know we're actually running. So Paul, scope it out for me. Is this going to be an episode where we agree about the use of GM screens, or are we going to disagree about how excellent they are?
I don't think it's going to be spicy, but I expect that we will disagree in the end.
Good to know. Good to know. Not sure which way it's going to go now, so we should.
Yeah. I don't know. That's my inclination, but maybe I'm misjudging what your take is on them.
Likewise, I think I would say the same.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, I have next to me actually a giant physical stack of my own collection. I went through the shelves behind me and I just grabbed up every GM screen I could find that was interesting in any way. And it's an impressive stack of paper and cardboard sitting next to me here. So I'm excited to talk about it and get into some of the pros and cons and talk about how they've changed over time. And ready to dig into it.
I have a couple. I don't have a huge stack, but I have a couple. You know, let me start by asking, did Gary or Dave, when they invented D&D, did they use a screen? And it's interesting that at some point, I think Morris at Blog of Holding got to ask Mike Mornard, who played in both of their original games, about those kinds of things. And, DM screens didn't exist initially. It's an idea that somebody had to have later on. But what Mike said in Gary's earliest games is that he did physically hide himself behind a filing cabinet. He had a filing cabinet at the head of the table, pulled out the drawers for extra space, and entirely physically hid himself behind the cabinet unseen. And the only way that they interacted with the original, with Gary DMing, was just through his voice. No battle map, no figurines, Gary's face not actually visible, just his voice. And I think that might be the opposite with Arneson, who I think did face the players and did use a lot of battle maps and figurines, actually. So, those kinds of things, like sometimes you look at original D&D and feel it's a little bit schizophrenic about, do you want to use figurines or not? And the problem is the two designers came down on the opposite sides of that. One revealed himself to players and one did not. And that's one of those classical bifurcations that we still are wrestling with today that I think is really interesting.
That is fascinating. I'm trying to remember, right? I'm trying to draw into my memory. I wish I had the picture in front of me. There's that classic picture of Gary running a game, which has like some notes, right, about like the mega dungeon that he created, which everybody I think zooms way in to try and like read his notes. And my memory of that picture, and this may be totally apocryphal, I may be misremembering it, but my memory of that feature is that he's maybe pulled away from the table. Does he have like the binder maybe in his lap or otherwise like semi-concealed? Am I making that up, or is that true?
Semi-concealed is about right. So we have these pictures, these photos of him running games at conventions or his house, kind of late era. And he didn't have any screen. The dice were in the open, it seems like if you just leaned over a little bit, you could easily see the map. I'm actually surprised myself when I see those photos that he doesn't seem to be hiding the dungeon map pretty much at all, other than just like 5-degree tilt away from the players.
Yeah. Right, like a slight tilt, maybe something at hand to cover it up just in case. But yeah, that's my memory of it.
Yeah, it's pretty much out in the open, which really surprises me, honestly. Now, what some people do, if you have your stuff in a binder like that, they stand your loose leaf binder up on the table and use that as a screen. And then some people will just take a manila folder and prop it up. And probably that's how those things started, maybe.
I always kind of assumed that the original modules, right, with their, how the original modules are printed, where the cover is separate from the contents, and then usually the inside of the cover is the map. I always kind of assumed that you were meant to like set that up almost like a screen in front of you, so you could be looking at the map in front of you and have the contents, the key and whatnot, open up in front of you behind that as a screen. Although, frankly, the couple times I've tried to do that doesn't really work very well because that cardboard is so flimsy. It doesn't really make a really good screen. No.
I think I've seen some people do that, but I feel like I tend to see that more in media depictions of D&D play than actual D&D players. Like, I think that people making TV shows or movies tend to have that sense memory when they're really flimsy, and I don't see many people in practice doing that.
They're flimsy. They're not great at it, but they were made in that trifold format, right? Which made it like feasible. You maybe could do that. I don't know.
Yep. Some were 2, some were 3. You're right. So, do you know what the first actual dedicated GM screen was? Because it wasn't from TSR.
No. I guess I don't. The earliest stuff I have access to is all TSR.
Yeah, and I had to learn this recently, frankly. I have an image with the red dot. So the first DM screen came from Judges Guild, which was making non-licensed supplements for D&D back in the 70s. So in 1977, they came out with this product called the Judges Screen, which we're looking at right here. Yeah, I think it was their very first publication that wasn't part of their magazine subscription process. So it's their first dedicated product you could buy, and you had to assemble it yourself. So it came in these 3 pieces of cardstock, and not super durable, and you had to tape it together yourself. And the way that it was structured is that you'd have, with these 3 panels, you'd have 2 on the far sides that were in a portrait format, and then the one in the middle would be landscape. And so you'd actually have this just suggestion of a castle, and the DM could look over the kind of shorter middle part at the table if they wanted to. And clearly a lot of thought went to this. We're looking at the player side has a bunch of stuff, but the DM side has all the important original D&D, attack matrices, saving throws, and the middle, they do have a listing of every single monster in the game. And I find that interesting because for my custom screen myself, that's also the thing that I find to be most important. I have, from original D&D, I have the standard monster matrix slid into my custom screen. And so me having just discovered this, frankly, this morning, it was kind of interesting that they also thought that having a complete index of monsters right in front of the DM was important, because that's warm to my heart, and I think well thought out, frankly.
Fascinating. I have, let's see, I'm going to try and let's see if this works. I found a photo online of it kind of assembled. Here we go. That's not perfect, but you can kind of see the tape and it's so interesting to me. Of course, I can't tell you how many game products, from board games to books to screens, that were starting to fall apart, that as a younger person I absolutely tried to fix with good old Scotch tape or other, transparent packing tape, which seems amazing in the moment, and then of course discolors with age and starts to look terrible, and then also starts to break and fall apart. So that's a nice little sense memory for me there.
Oh
But I
yes.
love that alteration of, or that innovation, I suppose, of the middle section being shorter than the outer sections. How fascinating that kind of like disappeared. But I think one of the things we're going to see as we start talking about other historical DM screens over time is debate about that height, about whether you want the panels portrait or landscape, or something else. That's
Hmm.
really interesting.
It's also
Fascinating.
interesting that would be really hard to manufacture like that. It would be really inconvenient to manufacture a product like that where the parts were
Yeah,
different formats. So it was really only feasible because you had to assemble it yourself.
interesting. So the earliest one I was
Right.
aware of, Dan, is I see you have an image of here as well of the first edition AD&D Dungeon Master screen, which I own a copy of. Surprisingly, I own, in
Me
fact, an
too.
immaculate copy of, which is fascinating and
Wow.
is a complete
Yeah.
accident. I mean, this thing I would definitely call this near
Interesting.
mint. It's wild. I'm gonna. So it is for folks who don't know this one. It is 4 panels, portrait, you know,
Oh
format, lots of charts in the inside. Is this not what you have? And then an additional
no,
two
it's
more panels. Because maybe you want 6 whole panels. That's not what you have.
So no, mine is yeah. And the crazy thing is that I would say the exact same thing, that I actually have this kind of by accident. I acquired it from a friend at some fairly late point. So the one that I have, and now we have to debate like which one came first. So mine has 3 and 3. So I got the one,
Great.
and yours might be first edition actually, the very first production of this. So mine has the 3-panel DM screen, and then on the other one it's 3 panels, and it has no. You actually have that too. So
Yeah.
so my
I
three
mean, you don't
panel
have
screen
yours hasn't been cut or
has
repaired
like
or anything, has it?
no, not at all, and yours
No.
hasn't.
No.
Interesting.
Uh,
what the
Fascinating.
what the
And I
hell?
noticed, I noticed that you're. So I'm literally looking at the Achaeum entry here because I noticed you don't have the yellow stripe across the top, and that's the thing that shows older editions. So you and I both have something in
Okay.
between
Okay.
second and fourth printing. Uh, one thing you can
Weird.
look at the bottom is it does it with the bottom sentence here on the front. This is getting very nerdy, but does it say this package consists of 2 durable and folding cardstock screens? Does it say something about this
This
second edition or
says this second edition is what I have. This second edition of
the
Dungeon
second
Masters has
edition
been
of the
redesigned,
DM?
Paul, for better clarity and quicker reference.
There you go. There you go. Therefore, what you have is the fourth printing, whereas I
Okay.
believe what I have is the second printing. I know mine's not the third
Genius.
printing because then there's a tell on the inside about how the color bleeds on for third. So I have
Okay.
the second, and you,
Okay.
according to Achaeum,
Wow.
in my very poor
Thank you. You
research.
know what? I
So
trust Achaeum on that. Thank you, Achaeum.
uh, yeah, interesting. So what I found really fascinating about this one, and I'll tell my story about how I came about mine by accident because that's kind of funny. It's the same reason why I have 2 copies of the BX basic box back there. Complete accident, and now I will very strongly praise Noble Knight Games. If you haven't used them, they do not endorse this show, but I will greatly praise them as a retailer and great customer service. So they're an online shop, right? I think that they're a physical shop somewhere too in Wisconsin, I think. And they do carry like a lot of old out of print stuff. They do a lot of trade in that stuff. So if you're looking for old out of print stuff and you order it online, there's a good chance you're going to find it on Noble Knight. I ordered from them one of those BX boxes. So I was like, I have to. When I was super into BX, I'm like, I just need to own one of the original boxes. I want the whole complete thing. So I found one that they had complete set, had all the inserts, had the dice, had everything good to go. I was like, yes, I need to own that, and I bought it. When it showed up at my door, I opened the box. The box was exactly what I expected, but inside the box was none of the contents of the BX basic set. It was this screen, and I think a copy of Rogues Gallery It was maybe
Uh, uh,
something else in there.
It's the Monsters and Treasures assortment.
It's Monsters. Okay, yeah, just random stuff, and I was like, "What is this? This is weird." But I was definitely blown away by like how good condition this thing looks like, mint out of the box. This screen. Yeah. I was like, "This is a terrible error." So I contacted them, and I was like, "I'll send you back this thing I didn't order. It looks great, but it's not at all what I ordered. But what I really wanted was the contents of that box." And their response was, "So sorry, we have another one on the shelf. We're going to ship it to you. Please keep what we already sent you." And I was like, wow, thank you, Noble Knight. So, free copy of the AD&D First Edition DM screen and a free extra box for my basic stuff.
That's a business that should be very successful. The world working right.
That's yeah. They're a great company. I've ordered stuff from them since, and I would happily order from them again, given how good that customer service experience was.
I was looking at their stuff this morning myself.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the screen. So what's interesting to me is that the bifold, the outer bifold, the two extra panels. First of all, like, love that you get this glorious cover art from, what is that, the player's handbook, without any of the print material on it, right? But the inside of mine is all the psionic stuff. So immediately I'm like, glad that's a separate thing. No thanks.
I concur. You're right. I concur.
Unnecessary. Yeah. But if you want the giant panel mega screen, I guess go for it.
Yeah. So does your 4-panel screen include the assassination table and grenade-like missiles? Figure out what
grenade-like missiles is here all the way on the left, underneath undead. Matrix for clerics affecting undead.
Okay.
And then again, I'm looking for the assassination table. Yeah, the assassination table's over here in the middle. Sounds like they reorged everything. Sounds like they reorged everything when they switched from 4 and 2 to 3 and 3.
My second, or I guess my first 3-panel thing has the psionics plus grenade-like missiles and assassination table, all of which I look at as rarely necessary and would be like, I'm going to, you know what, if I have a moment where I have a lot of psionics combat, which literally never happened, I can just momentarily slide that in behind the main screen, I guess, but I pretty much don't need any of that while the game's normally running. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. So clearly that was the thought process, right? They must have reorganized the layout based on what they thought was absolutely necessary versus what they thought was additional extra stuff, right? So you can have just the core 3-panel, and that's good. And then here's the extra 3 panels of extra stuff if you want it. Interesting. Yeah. Lots of good stuff in here, right? Your full attack matrices for all the different classes, saving throws for items. Glad to have that. Yes. The player-facing panels. We've got all of the experience leveling tables, the spells by level tables, the weapons. Good stuff that I would expect to expose to players. And then a nice, frankly, I will say a nice kind of balance of some useful player tables and some nice big full-color art.
I agree. I love, one of the things about a good GM screen, I feel, is having nice art that sets the tone of the game. Is actually like sometimes we forget about that, actually, but having that in front of the players of like, here's kind of the game that we're trying to create, I think is like a huge win. I love this Dave Trampier art. I love the fact that it ties into the other art in the core rule books. So you have that same famous idol from the cover of the player's handbook, and then you have like one of these like I'm getting treasure things that are kind of common illustration. Really cool fighter here, really cool castle, and then right in the middle, we actually had last week, Paul, a tiny little debate about what are the monsters that were fought in front of the idol on the player's handbook, and of course the centerpiece for the canonical D&D monster at the time is, well, now you can see the whole middle is this giant horde of lizard men. So viewers, if you want to find more about lizard men in D&D, look at our episode from last week, because that's what we were talking about a week ago. And of course, that was a huge core part of D&D at the time.
Awesome.
I love that.
Well, let me now be critical of this thing. Let me now be critical of this.
Okay. Yeah.
It's enormous. It's so big, Dan. I can't. Are my players over there?
Okay.
This thing is ridiculous.
Okay.
It's a monster.
Okay.
It's a monster at 4 panels, never mind 6, and it's I'm sad that we don't have that Judges Guild idea of having the center be lower so you can actually see your players got lost.
Got it.
Along the way.
Because all the panels here are portrait type, so it is 11 inches
full,
tall.
8.5 by 11, so you got 11-inch tall. Yeah. It is. This thing is an enormous wall. I'm reminded of, and this is going to be a common complaint for me from a lot of these screens, is one of the things I really dislike about the DM screens. I like what you were talking about before about the artwork setting the tone of the game. I like the accessibility to tables that I need frequent access to. I hate the barrier between me and my players. I hate I think it gets in the way of communication. Right? Some people are expressive. Some people talk with their hands. Some people have body language that is just getting lost as they disappear behind this giant wall that you're building between yourself and them. And I'm reminded of, I'll tell you this ridiculous anecdote. I'm reminded of, I have a coworker. And I work now in a remote setting, so it's all virtual. All my exposure to my coworkers is through calls. And he has a big beard, like much bigger than mine, longer beard. And he always wears a baseball cap. And his camera is set way up high and looking down at him. So that when I see the guy, all I see is the beard and the brim of the hat. And that's all I can ever see. I have no idea what my coworker looks like. No idea. I've never seen it. All I see is the brim of the hat and the beard shaking, and I hear his voice. Never seen him.
He just needs to hide behind a filing cabinet. Now we're good to go.
So that is my biggest complaint.
What a crazy online culture we have nowadays. Now, I will say that for me, weird. And I guess I mean, to me it seems natural, but I guess I run games slightly different than a lot of people, is that I'm standing up all the time. So I actually get rid of my chair, and for however long I'm running games, I'm standing up the whole time. So I can have an 11-inch screen. It's not a problem for me seeing my players. If anything, I wish the combination, and I'm going to be moving around the space quite a bit. I'm going to be, kind of expressing myself and moving and, pantomiming quite a lot while I'm DMing. So for me, the combination of I'm further away from the table a little bit, and as I age, my eyesight's getting not as good as it used to be. So sometimes with these screens, I wish that the typesetting was much larger, because sometimes I have to lean way in order to and get a lot of light on it in order to see the little teeny tiny fine print because of those two things. But admittedly, if most DMs are actually sitting down, I can see that as a much bigger issue.
It's interesting. I feel like I also get up and move around a lot. Although I sit down, I'd say I vary. Right? Sometimes I'm sitting, sometimes I'm standing, and move around a lot. If I put some more thought into it, I've never done this completely. I think I've done this sort of maybe accidentally or whatnot. But I think what I would really like is, right, if the point there is simply now that you're using the screen just as reference sheets, I almost want those just on my phone, right? That way I can pinch zoom to get whatever font size I want. And if I just had a thing that I could just quickly swipe through, the quick sheets on my phone, that's probably what I really want. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm like, well, why don't I just build that? I should build that. That's clearly what I want. Gather all the commonly used charts and put them into some kind of something on my phone that can be quickly swiped through, and that will be perfect. And then I won't need a screen ever again.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, Paul, but my former roommate, John, who's also another software guy, occasionally I'd have a conversation with him in either direction, and either I or he would say, look, I'm not going to do this. I don't have time for this project. I'm not going to do this. But if I was going to do this, then I would build the like A and B. Oh, fuck. Now I have to do the project because I just said how it's going to. Now I'm committed.
I'm guessing that this is a very minor project, right? I'm guessing that probably there's some app already that will just let me upload images or text or whatever and just give me a quick swipe interface. And I think that's important too, because let me talk about, we're kind of jumping all around, I apologize, but I've seen a lot of people use a laptop as a screen. I've seen that a fair amount, right? An open laptop is pretty much a great, it also hides stuff, but like, infinite space for infinite resources. You have the internet at your fingertips. You have, all of your material, right? You can get anything you want. The downside, I think, is it's not as snappy, right? It's not like a print screen where your eyes are just checking to the most commonly used things, and you're not being forced to edit, right? You're not being forced to edit down to just the crucial things that you need access to all the time, and so it steals the DM's attention. Right now, the DM is like, oh wait, I need this thing, tappity, click, click, right? And now the DM's lost for 2 minutes while they pull up on their computer the thing they need. So I think actually a laptop, by my argument, a laptop is a terrible screen.
I mean, I was on Blue Sky this morning seeing someone set up for the game, and they had both. They had a screen, like a cardboard screen, like we're talking about, and the main thing they had behind the screen was a laptop. I could almost imagine that being better for as they maneuver through a wilderness or a dungeon. You have quite a lot of different encounter tables. You don't need to look at most of them at once. You could scroll to that particular item. I do have now giant binders for the games that I run, and I'm leafing through trying to find the right encounter area that they've gone to. So I could imagine that being possibly maybe more useful than the laptop itself as a screen. But I don't use electronic devices. I still don't do that at my tables, and maybe I'm behind the curve. But I like trying to have stuff immediate, either in my head or in front of me.
There's a nice debate going here in our chat. I'll just share this little tidbit here from William, who says, I feel like a GM, I'm looking over my screen at the quote, I feel like a GM can just as easily fall into digging physical books.
Well, you're doing a whole lot of fighting to look over stuff today. I see.
Yeah. Okay,
I see what you mean.
It's true. Absolutely true. Yep. I do feel like there's a nice separation between the screen and the books, though, because like when you switch to the books, you know what you're getting into, right? You're acknowledging, all right, I need this esoteric piece of information, and I'm willing to invest the time and energy. I think I've seen, I guess what I'm pushing against here is DMs who have used a laptop where it's like, great, I've got the adventure open as a PDF, I've got my resource books, I've got tables, I've got the internet, everything I need is on the laptop. That's all I need. But like the context switching to find the right thing and move around, or even possibly even it makes you a little lazy about prepping that material, right? How much energy are you putting into organizing the material so it's easy to get at? Probably very little. You're like, oh, I got the internet. I'll just type, and it'll give me what I want. And like, I feel like that steals attention way more than, oh, hang on, let me grab a book, let me leaf through. Oh, I've got this thing in my binder. They are definitely variants of the same problem for sure. But I do think that a computer is more prone to that. I almost want to say it's more prone to that just because of the interface, because of the keyboard. Like I almost think it's better to have a phone or a tablet than a computer, because then at least your input, its ability to steal your attention and take in your input is less, right? Because you don't have the quick trackpad and keyboard and whatnot to muck around with. Like it's either right there on the screen or not, and you're going to immediately hit that brick wall of like, oh, I could find this, but I got to navigate this annoying UI on my iPad. Forget it. Hopefully.
I think I'm being consistent where I think I usually like ideally you do no book lookups while you're playing, particularly for core rule stuff. And I think a lot of the stuff that I've done like in our OED house rules is to make stuff so very short, so very simple that it can just be in the DM's head all the time. And like, particularly those early screens, right, our, first edition AD&D screen, the primary thing that takes up all 3 panels facing the DM is all these class attack matrices of class level versus AC for all the classes and all the monsters and saving throws and undead turning and yeah, that's also saving throws, isn't it? A whole lot of saving throws.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and it's all linear. I mean, there is actually a math formula that you can just do in your head to compute practically all this stuff. So as one example with our OED house rules, all that stuff just turns into a one-line formula that you can just do in your head, and all of those tables all go away. So I
think it's very interesting, Dan, to talk about what's in what as the actual material being presented in the screen, right? Because that's, I mean, I think the thing that we're dancing around that we haven't really defined is like, what is the point of the screen, right? 1, quick reference. 2, hide secrets, right? Is that the major components of the screen? Yeah, I think so.
Agreed. And then secondary stuff is the artwork, setting the tone, and the ability to post stuff on the other side to make it maybe handouts to make it visible to the players. But yeah, what you said, they're the 2 biggest things, certainly.
I have here on hand both the 2nd and 3rd edition official D&D DM screens. I think it might be interesting. Let's take a poke at those and what's on those. Yeah. Right. So. Oh,
let me show you. Before we do that, I have another 1st edition screen. I just want to quickly. So in 1985, we're still 1st edition. In 1985, they retooled the screen. So you have kind of similar. The first one, you have the Dungeon Master screen. It is 3 panels, slightly different artwork that they were using on the DM's guide. And then the other one, they have a second screen, the same set, Paul, and it is the player's reference screen. They're giving a screen to the players, and I'm like, I'm what? What are the players supposed to have this hiding them? And this is all weapons and equipment they can buy and spell tables and things like that. And I think that it was just them trying to rationalize why there were 2 screens in the first version of like, well, I guess this is players' information. Obviously, this was not sticky, and I don't think anybody ever had player screens ever again, because that was like really a real
what's on the inside of the player screen? What is in there? What are they giving to the players?
Inside AD&D weapons chart right here, missile weapons. All the equipment tables are here, and then over here, Paul, grenade-like missiles.
Okay, so the same stuff that was in the other screen. The grenade one's weird, but like basically the stuff that you would put on the outside of the screen for the players anyway.
Correct. Correct. And then also spell tables.
And spell tables. Yep. Okay, side note. In terms of like things, physical barriers in the way, I had the same problem ultimately with the Geek Chic tables. Do you remember the Geek Chic custom high-end gaming tables? Do you remember those things? You'd see them at Con or whatever, like very, very fancy, very expensive, high-end woodworking tables made explicitly for gaming. There's a lot of variations of these, but I'm thinking about the first one that kind of came out was by a company called Geek Chic. And here's the thing, right? They were deep. The tables were like a good, 8, 9 inches deep, right? They had kind of 2 layers, right? So that you could open them up and you could set up your miniatures inside the table like it's a sandbox. And then you had panels you could put over top of that to turn it back into a normal table, keeping all your miniatures and stuff still in their mid-play setting. And now you could use it as like a dining room table. Well, every player had a little station. And had a little fold-out thing where they could put their drink and their material and their stuff, and have a whole little setup in front of them. As did the DM, whole little space here in front of you to set that stuff up, which is like, oh, that sounds great and really handy. Except that the depth, again, you're like looking over the table like this at the other players. Yeah, no, I hated it. I played it a couple times, and I was just like, no.
I feel that. I feel that.
Okay.
So what did second edition look like? Yeah.
Second edition is you can see mine is well loved. This is mine from high school, and it clearly got quite a lot of play. It's a 3 panel. 3 panels. Yeah. You've got some artwork. Now, interestingly, the back is like trade dress because at this point, what they started doing is there was an insert that was a booklet that was like, so it came with some stuff, a free adventure, some other stuff, and then the whole thing would have been cellophane wrapped so that it presented like, right. So you've got your ISBN number and your trade dress stuff here, which is kind of a waste of a panel, frankly. Except that brilliantly on the back center here of what the player is looking at, we get item saving throws. Item saving throws, and then some combat modifiers to initiative. Good stuff for players to have. Our interior is saving throws, turning table, thief skills, Thacos. We're using Thaco now. Initiative modifiers is repeated here, so you got one on the DM side and one on the player side. I got all my items, right? All my weapons. All the damage types and speed factors and etc. Combat modifiers. Generally, I would say pretty useful stuff. The back panel here that's exposed to the player, we're looking at things like missile weapon ranges, Thacos, undead chart, turning undead chart, punching and wrestling results. If you need punching and wrestling.
Of course.
Yeah. Armor modifiers for wrestling. It's a decently well condensed screen. We're down to 3 panels, which is a little less, but it is still, it's still in the tall format.
Yep, it is. It is.
I'm going to jump ahead to the 3rd edition screen.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have images of this stuff, Dan, or not. We're back to, once again, 4 panels. But full artwork. Right. Just art for the players, right? And lots of charts for the DM. And I would say the vast majority of charts for the DM are about how to calculate difficulty class. For a lot of stuff on various skill difficulties. And then some actions, action economy mechanics.
Right. Yes. Right. Which is kind of analogous to your turn structure type issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think similar to like devoting 3 panels to the attack matrices, right? It's like the game has gotten so complex that you need a bazillion tables on it, and so here are the bazillion tables in front of your face.
Yeah, agreed. Also, so I think I have that screen somewhere in my basement here. Really flimsy, barely stands up.
Very flimsy.
Am I right?
Very flimsy. Yep. It's a very thin. Of all the 3 that we just looked at for 2nd and 3rd edition screens, it is the lightest weight. Interestingly, only 2nd edition hasn't got a nice high gloss laminate on it. I'd say of them, the 1st edition feels the most solid.
Some of the people in the chat pointed out that my printing of the 1st edition screen is not glossy like yours is. So I actually don't have. I don't have any screens that are high gloss like that one, actually.
Oh, interesting. I've got some other screens here to talk about just real quick. I'm gonna rip through them real fast because they're not related to D&D. But here's the Savage Worlds Explorer Edition screen, which I think might be the first one I saw that is in landscape. So now we've got a 3-panel landscape, which is, I think, in my opinion, a little bit better. You get to see a little bit more of my face. It's not quite as in the way. Again, charts on the inside, artwork on the outside, decent. What else do I have here? It's probably not worth getting into. This is the 2nd edition Warhammer Fantasy DM screen. And one of the things I find most interesting about this one, again, artwork on the outside, charts on the inside, is that the 2 inner panels are not full width. I don't know if you can see this.
Okay.
Right? They're like squares. So you get this interesting 4-ish panel, but the sides are short.
Occasionally when my full sized ones, I refold them the wrong way. Like there's going to be one of the 3 panels that's a little bit bigger than the other one, and if I fold it the wrong way, they get pinched, which is not good for their binding. And the very first thing I think of that is that would avoid my accidental pinching from folding them the wrong way by doing it that way. That's actually kind of smart.
Okay, let's talk about folding direction, huh? Here I have this is the higher end Warhammer Fantasy Second Edition DM screen. It's bigger, but we're back to portrait mode, so you get another giant wall in front of you. Some nice artwork and whatnot, and it is thick. This is on thick cardboard. Nice. I don't know if you can see that. But it is very heavy. But in order to make that work, it folds in this kind of accordion style.
Accordion.
Which right? Which is terrible because the center fold goes the wrong way.
Got it.
When it's in front of you, right? It's vaguely concave as the players look at it. It's vaguely concave, which is not great. Like I want it to bend the other way. I want it to be more of an arc, a convex arc away from me. Yeah.
Oh, what a fascinating design issue. I can totally see why they stumbled into it, but oh, wow, fascinating. Yeah, that's wow, crazy. Absolutely.
The white box Paranoia screen solves this a little bit. It is also very thick cardboard and kind of accordion fold. Okay. But the center fold, there's like a lot of paper. It's a very wide gap, so it's easy for it to go in either direction.
Wow. Great.
It won't fold the wrong way like we're just talking about, right? The thickness of the cardboard gets in the way and it won't pack down that way. You have to accordion fold it to put it away, but when you put it in front of you, it will bend in the right direction.
Oh, good for them. Good for them.
The other weird thing I want to point out about this screen, so again, we're back into giant, wall in front of you, but maybe that's not bad for Paranoia. This is something I wanted to dig into. Like, how much of the mechanics make this need for secrecy that important, right? And in Paranoia, I think even more so.
Yeah.
The player-facing side of this, I don't know if you can see this in Paranoia White Box Edition, the players do a lot of actions through a deck of cards. Well, the outside of the players thing has all of these little spots where you could maybe hold up a card, and it says, do not use, +1. Alt, +0. Happy, +1. Team leader only, +2. It has all these little spots where you could hold up a card and absolutely no instructions whatsoever about what that means to the player. Good luck. The screen itself, with an entire page of rules, which I actually taped to the inside of my screen. Like I was like, that is more important to me than whatever nonsense they had put on the screen itself. So this is kind of slightly modified by me. But I taped the actual full page of instructions of what it means. And it's just every one of those boxes does something different based on how the player interacts with it. And there's all kinds of rules here about, like, if the player doesn't perfectly align their card, you can give them treason. If they knock the screen over, you can give them a lot of treason.
That's great.
All these crazy rules. There's one of the, I'll just give you an example. One of the boxes says rotate +0. Also, by the way, there's 2 columns for every box of whether or not control is pressed. I don't know what that means. I'm looking all over my screen here for a control button. I'm not seeing one. Okay. I'm not sure what that means. But if you play it in the rotate box and control is pressed, then the instructions to the DM are, start singing the battle hymn of Alpha Complex. Players must play musical chairs while you're singing.
Man, I haven't played Paranoia in ages, and man, every bit of it just really delights me. That is great stuff.
Yeah. So let me show. That's the only case I can think of a screen that is like got mechanics built in, right? That here's a little sub game for you on the screen itself.
That's so Paranoia. Yeah. Let me show that. So the screen that I have been using the most regularly in the last year or so is my classic Star Frontier screen. So running original Star Frontiers from 1983, and sure enough, the very first supplement, the very first accessory, immediately on publication was a referee screen. Same format. It's portrait format. It does have 3 panels. It did come with a little interior mini module written by Mark Akers and Tom Mulvey. And so center part, so one panel is the artwork. And on the DM side, here you have fairly detailed attack rules. So weapons over here, shooty stuff, melee type stuff, attack rules. And this is stuff that you can't figure out with a formula like in classic D&D. So this absolutely needs to be here. I am using it all the time. Every time an attack is made, I take the player's base attack and I have to look at this and add up the modifiers in my head before I tell the players. I get a lot of use out of this. And, for a fairly early time, I don't know if Moldvay's name is on the adventure. I'm not entirely sure who designed it, but someone did a fairly good job of this, because you also have what I do like. You have basic sketches for any general animal type you can possibly think of. So this little table right here has stats for basically every herbivore, carnivore, omnivore of different sizes. You can basically kind of on the fly run almost any alien creature just based on this. You've got the average statistics for any of your playable races sitting right here. You've got all the kind of like third edition. You have a whole bunch of skills that work with completely independent mechanics right there. You've got vehicle combat rules. So I use pretty much every bit of this on a regular basis. And then on the player side, you've got all the equipment, and they're commonly looking at this for weight, ammo, energy usage, stuff like this. And then also buying new skills. And it's funny because I actually want to say that I kind of don't like spending a lot of space for like XP awards or character class advancement tables, because those are the things you really shouldn't be looking at while the game is playing. You could look that up at the end of the night. But I got to say, of everything on the player side, they're using this all the time. They actually do use this every single session at the beginning and the end of a session, but it's just this big. That's it. That's all the information you need right in this little box about character advancement. That's it. So it's one of those things whereby my personal desire is clearly my instinct is exactly the opposite of what I see in play. That's actually the thing that does get used the most. And the other thing is the artwork, right? So I usually come in for new players with Star Frontiers and I say, this game, it's kind of a mashup of Star Frontiers and Foundation and Starship Troopers and Dune. And then I usually put this up and the players go, nope, it's just Star Wars. It's just a Star Wars cantina, and you clearly have Wookiees. It's just plain old Star Wars is what you're showing us. So I don't mind that, signal, frankly. Yeah. That is super well designed. A lot of screens I go, I would change this, I would change this, I would change this. And that's pretty much what I need, actually. So kudos to the designer for that.
Well, let me share with you the screen I'm most likely to use these days when I do use a screen. It's been my personal favorite for a long time. Is this screen, which was made by Pinnacle Entertainment Group, who makes Savage Worlds, and this is a vinyl customizable screen. So it is landscape format. It is 3-panel, and then each panel is covered in vinyl and clear plastic pockets, so you can print out whatever you want, stick it in there, you're good to go. I like this screen so much, I own 3 of them.
Oh,
snap.
Oh, wow.
Why would I own 3 customizable screens? Isn't the whole point of a customizable screen that you only need one, Dan? I learned a couple hard lessons with my first one. This is the one that I actually still use today for old school game stuff. You can see I put in the covers from the BX books on there, and I kind of hand modified this image. Right, so got nice artwork on the front. On the inside has the single most important table to me in my BX games, which is my critical hit effects chart. That's right dead center.
Yeah.
And then I've actually got some pages from the OED
Brilliant.
Guide. Yeah, on the inside.
Brilliant.
First of all, it's made out of plastic, Dan. Right? It's the hard cardboard in the inside, but it's coated in this vinyl that gets stiff and starts to crack and break. So sure enough, I've had to repair mine with tape. The other classic mistake, and the reason I own a couple of these, I I was so happy with this artwork. I printed it out while I was working at a place that had a real nice color laser printer, and I shoved those nice color laser printer images right into the pocket, and the freaking ink fused with the plastic. This art will not come out anymore. This screen is now permanently a BX screen because that is never coming out. It is glued in super tight, and that's a bit of a bummer. So that's why I own 3 of them. Is I honestly, you'll note like on some of these, what I started to realize was, and this is so dorky, but I started to print out my high color prints and then laminate them. So they're laminated and then slid in so that they won't adhere to the plastic.
Okay.
And these are the little stickers, so they're easier to slide in and out.
Yes.
There you go.
Paul, you liked those customizable screens so much that you made me get one. So likewise, when I run D&D, these days, I'm also using the same brand of customized screen. And just like Paul says, the major weakness is the binding, the connecting binding scratching. So you can see I was super punk about this, and I just slapped duct tape on it to try to get it to stick together. So I have custom artwork by our friend BJ made this for me for when I'm running Original Edition Delta, which I adore, and a lot of classic OD&D reference sheets on the inside. But if I'm running a particular adventure, I'll slide the map in. This is what I would do for like kind of a normal open-ended campaign, and I can slide other stuff in. So yeah, the customizable screen.
Did you find
I'm totally sold.
The same problem that I found in repairing them? That if you put tape down the center of this broken seam, that you are now then covering up the slot in which to put the paper.
Exacto. Cut the opening up. So it's Yep, that's something I had to deal with. So cut the opening up.
As you can see, this one's my oldest, and it's really starting to split and break, and the cardboard is becoming ready to stick out. So unfortunately, they just don't last forever, which is a real pain.
That's basically why I duct taped it. Is that I knew that there wasn't going to be any really elegant way of keeping it together. So it was like, you're going to stick together even if you look like crap, buddy. And I do X-Acto knife the opening on the top to make sure stuff can get in.
I will. We've almost run the clock. Shoot, Dan, we've run the clock here. Okay. Ultimately, I will say though, these DM screens, even though I've finally customized exactly what I want for my BX games or OD&D games, I have precisely the charts I want in front of me, etc., etc. It is the piece of equipment I most often forget to bring with me, and that's ultimately, I think, problem number 5 or 6, I don't know what we're up to, of DM screens for me is it's another piece of paraphernalia. It's just another thing for me to forget that I don't want to think about. And I would rather, I think these days, again, I can boil it down to the one chart that I really want to have. And frankly, I've got 2 charts now. The charts I really want when I'm running OD&D is and they're my custom charts. I want my critical hits chart.
Yeah.
And I want my math chart thing for intelligent weapons. Those are the 2 things that are most likely to come up where I'm going to forget and go, how did that work? I need that. Yeah. And most likely what I'm going to do is I'm going to preload those on my phone so that I can just, I always have my phone on me. I'll just pop it open and jump to those pieces of reference. And I'd rather just not have any material in front of me or get rid of the barrier between me and the players. If I need secrecy, I just close the book, or I just put a book on top of the thing, or I just, if I'm rolling a die in private, I just cut my hand and I roll behind my hand. I don't feel like I need a big piece of cardboard to hide behind. That's where I'm landing on it.
I like it. I have a checklist of stuff. I travel to run a game every other week. So I have a checklist of stuff that I scan to make sure I have it. But my rule books and my screen stick together. It is, for me, the number one thing that's got to be, I got my rule books, I got my adventure, I got my screen, I got a dice tray. And then maybe some other stuff. So for me, it is a pretty necessary piece of equipment that I'm going to have stuck right on the rule book. I almost would go if push came to shove and you could just grab one thing, I would actually grab the screen, leave the rule book behind. The basic rule book stuff I ought to have in my head ideally, and the screen with the most critical stuff while the game is actually in session, that for me actually kind of comes first. I actually look to make sure my screen is there before the other stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Viewers, if you have opinions on what makes the best DM screen, what you need in front of you, what purposes it serves, other examples of interesting ways GM screens have been used that we haven't covered here, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment here in the YouTube video, and maybe we'll continue discussing it, because I feel like this one snuck up on me, Dan. I was not prepared for it to already be the end of the show.
We have so many thoughts about DM screens. Well, now you know what it feels like. So viewers, now you know what it feels like to be on this end of the show. And of course, remember that you can like, follow, and subscribe to us. We are on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and TikTok and Loops and GitHub for all your coding needs. And we do have the handle Wandering DMs on all the sites. So please look for us there and hoist up that like button.
If you prefer to listen to our show in audio-only podcast format, you can find those files on our website at wanderingdms.com. You can also find us on various podcast carriers like iTunes and Spotify and Pocket Cast. If you're listening to us right now on one of those sites and it gives the ability to do so, please rate and review our show. That helps other users of that site find us, and we really appreciate it.
We really do. And of course, thanks to our patrons who support the show. If you'd like to join them, please visit patreon.com/wanderingdms. And you'll see that every one of our Patreon tiers gets you access to a private Discord server where the conversation continues around the clock about old games and new games and fantasy and miniatures and horror games and all the stuff that we adore. And like Paul said, we will be there in about 10 minutes to get more of your thoughts in our live video after chat. And there were a whole lot of comments there that we need to review and touch on. And you need to remind us in the after chat. So please show up there and tell us the major things that we failed to get to in the hour here. And we're all there today, Paul, is that right?
Yep, absolutely. Ready to chat.
Sometimes one of us has to wander off immediately or somebody else shows up, so I need a reminder about whether we're both there or one of us is managing it. So viewers, don't forget, we are live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we hope that you'll join us again next week for another thought-provoking discussion.
Well.